And here on Community Access Television, another special, Todd Pittenger, the news director for News Radio 1150 KSAL. We like to keep the community informed. We're going to talk arts and humanities for this segment. With us, a couple of special guests today. Brad Anderson, the executive director of Celina Arts and Humanities. Stacy Ash wears many hats at Celina Arts and Humanities. Today we're going to talk to you wearing your Horizons hat, correct?
Yes, correct. As a program coordinator.
Program coordinator for the Horizons program. And let's delve right into it. Horizons program, Horizons grants. I've heard about that before. I don't really understand it. Explain a little bit about it to me.
Absolutely. It's a privately funded program, granting program, that specifically wants to empower individual artists and organizations, non-for-profit organizations, in integrating arts into their programs, and also in the individual artist kind of category, helping to professionally develop artists so that they can kind of up their game a little bit.
Give me some examples. I mean, this seems very wide-ranging to me. Art can be a little bit of everything,
Absolutely.
I think. Give me some examples of what someone could apply for a Horizons grant.
Absolutely, and I'll kind of talk about the three different grants that we offer, and then kind of give examples of each. We have what's called enrichment grants, which are kind of a quick infusion of money. It's up to $500, and that can be used for equipment. So say you're a sound engineer and you kind of want to up your game and maybe get a new PA so that you can be a little bit more broad-reaching. Or if you're into photography and you need some more equipment. So we can do it from that aspect. Or you have an actual project that you want to do, an exhibit that you would like to do, but you need help framing, you need help with some promotion. That $500 is just like a quick injection. And it runs pretty much all year long. And essentially what you just got to do is you got to get a hold of me. And meet with me. We don't let any of the grant applications kind of go out without my stamp of approval.
Sure.
And so there's that, the $500 enrichment grant. Then we move into the individual developing artist grant.
Okay.
And that runs up to, I believe that goes up to $5,000?
Up to $3,000.
$3,000, and that is the same kind of thought process as the enrichment grant, but then getting kind of that much even higher.
Okay.
You're here as an artist, but you want to be here. So how can this funding kind of tell the story, get you up there? And all of the enrichment grants, we have a community-based component. So we want to see not just that you're kind of helping to up your game as an artist, but you're using your art to impact the Celina community positively, get other people involved. If you want to do a workshop, say, and it's out of state, you need travel expenses and stuff like that, then you can go to workshops. But how are you going to bring back then those skills and either do an exhibit or maybe put on a workshop yourself?
Make some sort of impact in the community.
Some sort of impact, correct. And then we go from there to the organizational project grant, which goes up to $8,000. And that is where organizations can, like one of our examples is the MAD Camp, St. John's Missionary Baptist Church. Certainly, let's see, the USD 305 has used grant funding to get artists into the schools and have pieces installed. So that is up to $8,000, and again, there's got to be a community impact component. And of course, hitting kind of those diverse audiences and things like that are going to bode much higher for you in the jury process. So those are kind of the three areas.
In the upper two areas that Stacy mentioned, there's a match that's required as well.
Yes.
Artists match one part their funds with 2 parts of grant funding. The organizational project grants, it's a little higher bar, and it's a 1-to-1 match. So if an organization applies for the full $8,000, they've got to bring $8,000 to the table as well. Again,
We're talking about Horizons grants, a component of Celina Arts and Humanities. Executive Director of Arts and Humanities, Brad Anderson, with us. Stacy Ash kind of administers the program. Brad, you've been around a little bit longer than Stacy. How did this Horizons grant program start?
Only a decade or two.
I'm being kind.
Thank you. The program came out of kind of a natural extension of the growth of our agency. Celina Arts and Humanities was founded in 1966. 20 years in to that, 10 years in, we had the River Festival, and 20 years in, the folks said, you know, we've been paying for artists and residents to come to our community for long-term infusions for many years. How do we help grow and enrich our community on an ongoing, year-round basis and help both individual artists and organizations strengthen their artistic game?
Right.
And so that's how Horizons was born. So in 1986, the organizational projects grants were envisioned and funded by 50 individuals, each contributing $500 a year to this pool. And that money was then redistributed annually to organizations. As the program grew and morphed a couple of years in, then the individual artist grants were envisioned, and then a few years after that, the what were called sudden opportunity that are now identified as enrichment grants were done. So it grew out of the Artisan Residency Program. It is a privately funded group that does that. And so the city manager and in essence City Commission have given permission for me to use some of my city time to work on behalf, and Stacy, to work on behalf of the foundation to administer that part of the program.
So if my math is correct, this is the 30-year anniversary of it.
We've been
Since 1986, so this would be 30 years of Horizons grants in Salina. You mentioned something, it's kind of a public-private partnership, a little bit, isn't it?
It is, and many of the things that we do are that way.
Right.
You know, 1/3 of the funding for the Smoky Hill River Festival, the cash funding, comes from private donors, and
this grant money, all of the grant money itself comes from private donors,
that is
right?
awarded is not taxpayer dollars. They pay for the administration of the program, the board insurance, the annual audits. All of that is paid for by the foundation and kept separate from the city budget. So, separate budget. I wear two hats in the course of a given month or sometimes day. Stacy has multiple responsibilities. The foundation is a separate board, a 9-member board that manages a pool of assets that help support the River Festival, the Horizons program, and then the larger operations of Arts and Humanities. And so my job is to help work with Stacy and to have our staff help provide the support that's necessary for a professionally administrated grants program. So Stacy will be inviting jurors to come in, evaluators to read those grant applications and to ensure the foundation board that yes, in fact, these folks have been vetted, they've been evaluated, there's a scoring system.
They are legit.
Yes.
And so then we make recommendations to the foundation board for approval or not based on those evaluator scores.
All right, I've got two questions. First, I'll ask you, Brad. What if someone's out there, they think, you know what, this is a neat thing. I'd like to help fund this. How do they get involved?
Well, getting involved is relatively easy. It's just a matter of calling our office, and I'd be happy. I am passionate about this program, and I'd love to visit with anyone who's interested in helping support the program. As I mentioned, it's $500 a year. It can be billed quarterly, semi-annually, or annually, and you become a group of generous individuals who help support unique programming that wouldn't otherwise be able to happen.
All right, Stacy, I want you to tell me how I could potentially apply for some of this money. So let's say I just have an idea. I don't know if it would qualify or not. Would you be able to guide me or guide anyone through the process and talk about how that would work?
Absolutely. If the easiest way, as Brad said, for most things is to just call our office and then ask for me. If you are a first-time applicant, we ask for at least 8 weeks. 8 weeks to when you would want the grant to go through if you were to be approved. 8 weeks to get in touch with me. And what we're going to do is we're going to meet in my office. We're going to sit down. You're going to tell me everything. Tell me your whole idea. And I can kind of see, okay, that would be an enrichment grant or that would be a developing artist grant.
Or that wouldn't even qualify for a grant,
that
right?
wouldn't qualify, but if you tweaked these two things or added a community component or, kind of maybe thought about a workshop first instead of going straight for a whole bunch of new paints or something along those lines, we can work a lot of it out to where it would work it would help support our mission. If it doesn't support the Arts and Humanities mission, we're going to say it's probably not doable. But most things, if you sit down and you really kind of brainstorm and think about it, you can figure out how to make sure that we're providing the mission. And then from there, we go to the application process. Now, all of this is online, exists in salinaarts.com, the Salina Arts and Humanities website. So if you go into programs and then you'll see Horizons, you'll click on that. All three of these grant opportunities will pop up, right? So you'll get the guidelines. Everything that we've talked about here is in print. What qualifies, what doesn't, the matches, that sort of stuff. And then the application is a form fill that exists right there. So after I've had a preliminary meeting, essentially what I ask people to do is just take a stab. Take a stab at the narrative and then email it to me. I'll kind of poke holes in it and then we'll do another. We do usually one, sometimes if it's a really rough thing, two different draft proofs. And then it comes in. And at that point, the enrichment grants, since they're kind of ongoing, as long as you get that, and I didn't say 6-week notice if you've applied before. So 8 weeks if you're first, 6 weeks if you apply before. After we've got that application turned in, we can turn it around in almost a week if we think it's going to be approved. And that kind of goes through a staff jury process. But with the other grants, we have an annual deadline because, as Brad was saying, what we have to do is compile a jury, professional arts administrators, music professors, drama instructors. I mean, we get the whole gamut, and we have a professional jury that comes and usually does it in December. And so then the bigger grants, they're juried by people that may not even they're not even from necessarily all of them from the Salina community, so they have a very non-biased approach. They're really just reading those narratives and looking at those budgets and seeing those impact numbers and saying, is this what we want to fund or what we think would be a good recommendation to fund? So
they score it on 3 different criteria, on artistic merit and then on community impact, and so there are some set kinds of things with weighting on each of those that they evaluate.
And all of that is in the guideline form that you can find on our website. So, and so that is, we send out, we kind of do a press release, I want to say it's in July. We send out to the paper, hey, guess what, it's time for the grant, the 2 bigger ones. That's coming around again, and then we actually have a private bulk mailing of people that have received the grant in the past basically 30 years. I mean, it goes back pretty far.
Anybody listed on our artist list or organizational list in the community who would be grant eligible, we try to send something to. So the Girl Scouts and local churches and other organizations that at least meet the minimum qualifications as organizations or individual artists.
All art is unique in its own way. Throw out, either of you, some of the more unique things that have received grant funding. Well, what are some of the more unique, really cool things that have received grant funding in the past, over the past 30 years?
You know what? One of the ones that comes to mind, and I'm not sure about the level of uniqueness, but in terms of community impact and visibility, about 2 years ago, the Salina Arts Center received a grant to help with a community visioning of a mural for the outside their building.
I remember that, yes.
And that grant award
came together very
inspired,
nicely.
it did. And that grant wasn't for the ceramic mural. It was for the community to engage with a designer to vision what that would be. And the grant helped inspire then additional private donations, other partnerships, a facade renovation grant from SDI or from the city and elsewhere that all came together to be a remarkable and beautiful piece. And so in terms of what it started at as we'd like to vision what this message is.
We have this idea, we'd like to get some community input on it. And
it's a great example of how that system works. There's over the years, there's been a variety of applications from individual artists, from everything from buying some sound equipment and helping with professional presentation of cowboy poetry. You know, and the recipient, that grant recipient just won the Cowboy Poet of Kansas Award, the top award for cowboy poetry.
So you're doing something right.
We are. We're investing well.
You're making an impact.
Yes.
One that actually got funded last year was Noni Strand, who wrote a book called Rooted and Grounded in Love. And she was actually just up in my office yesterday talking about how wonderful the process has been, and she got funding to help have her book, I think it was professionally edited and peer edited, and then helping with the publishing. And she has a book launch now. I think it's October 14th, Friday, October 14th this month at Connected. And she said, I mean, she was just elated with the outcome of
She
her
credits the grant
development
program with
Yeah.
helping her get her book published.
Yeah, and so that's, you know, I haven't been here very long, but
Right.
that was a very positive testimonial.
Anything else we should know about the Horizons Grant Program?
I think one of the most important things that for the general public to have an understanding or appreciation of, there isn't anyone else in the state who does this.
Right.
You know, we were the first in the state to offer, and no one's been able to equal this level of local and grant funding.
And we've been doing it for 30 years.
We've been doing it for 30 years. We've gotten a little better and morphed and changed the
Right.
process along the way, and it continues to be in transformation. There are also new opportunities in the community beyond Horizons. Stacy and I have both had the opportunity with potential grant applicants maybe to redirect them to
Right.
other resources in the community. We aren't just your only funding source.
Yeah.
Right.
At times, an organization or an individual, or, well, individuals can't, but organizations have come to us and said, we have this great idea, we're going to do it in 6 months, and we need some funding. And I'll say, well, but it's April, and,
Right.
and our grant cycle isn't open for another 6 months. But how about the Greater Salina Community Foundation? You know, 10
You
years
can give them
ago,
guidance to go somewhere else.
yes,
right?
and so we can offer some assistance and support and help identify some additional sources, so.
And I would
while-
guess vice versa, those other organizations can send people your way, saying, you know what, that
Absolutely.
could be
Yeah.
a great Horizons grant.
Yes,
idea.
and one of our important jobs, Stacy's and all of our office, is to help people be aware that this is an important program. It's helped transform our community. It's helped raise the bar artistically for
Yeah.
both organizations and individuals. And yeah, I'm a 4-time recipient of
All
that as
right.
an individual artist, and I've worked for 2 organizations that have received Horizons grants. And I can tell you, every single time, that was a stretching thing that happened, and important for my development, both administratively or in the programs that Kansas Wesleyan offered, or through my individual growth as an artist.
Well, I can see both of you are very passionate about this. Brad Anderson, Stacy Ash, Salina Arts and Humanities Horizons Grants Program. If you have an idea, if you have any questions about it, contact Salina Arts and Humanities. Stacy organizes it. If Stacy can't help you, Brad Anderson can.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank both of you for joining us, and now we know all we need to know about Salina Arts and Humanities and Horizons Grants.
Thanks, Todd.
Thank you, Todd.
Thank-